But all right, I'll go ahead and address the next elephant in the room because I know you had addressed it a little bit earlier in a previous video. But Mike Norvell made a quote saying that he felt as good as he has in this team than the last few years. And I kind of look at that, and I am a Mike Norvell supporter. You can see in my name down here. I was trying to point to the name down there. My name includes Norvell, and I get it. I understand. I'm a big supporter, but I also understand too, coach speak. I understand too that Norvell is very positive when it comes to his players and the way he represents his team. He's never going to downgrade someone. He'd rather just not talk about it at all rather than just doing something like that. And he has a lot of faults. I get it. I mean, winning 7 games in 2 years, that's not something that you should be ever proud of at a place like Florida State. But I do think this team can be successful. I have them as 8-4. You know, I dropped my record prediction on my Instagram account and my Twitter account. Go look at that if you ever want to see that. I know Nole Nation has a little bit different win-loss projection and like where the losses come from, where the wins come from. But just overall, though, I get why he's saying he feels better than the last couple of years. I mean, if you're talking about the last 2 years, you know, a 5-7 team where they have 5 one-score games, I don't really count Miami as a one-score game, so you can really take that one off, to be honest. But, hey, you know, that's besides the point. You know, and then you had the 2-10 season where it was an absolute disaster. There was no close games to even be desired for. It seemed like Florida State was trying to play like a believer in the whole guys and, you know, wait till we get on the field type of thing, and it never happened. So, I mean, when you look at this roster as a whole, you know, you have an Ashton Daniels who I think is probably at least a better passer than Castellanos. May not be a huge better runner, but I think overall he's maybe a slightly better quarterback. I think running back room, I think that's probably the best they've had in a running back room in a couple of years. Wide receiver room, if you want to count Wayne McCoy going to you know, Louisville and stuff like that, I do think this wide receiver room has talent. Tight end room, I think, can be a little bit down just because Pittman going over to SMU, I think, can be a kind of a factor. That's a veteran you don't really want to lose. Offensive line, I know me and Nole Nation probably disagree with this a little bit more, but I think that the offensive line is a little bit lower compared to what it was last year with Micah Pettis being gone, with Pettibone, you know, even a Hensley too, you know, over there at right tackle. And I just wonder, you know, with everything going on, you know, with that offensive line, I know it's so important, but then the defensive line is probably a little bit worse. And I could say that even with the James Williams and a Jason Jenkins who didn't really do anything at Florida State. I think it's more so because those guys are unproven, really young at certain aspects. You're having to rely a lot on the Desir twins and Kevin Wynn and Rylan Kennedy, who hasn't really done too much. Then you go to the linebackers. I think this is one of the better linebacker cores they've had in a couple of years. I know some people are all hesitant about the linebackers, but I think Ernie Sims has really done a good job with this linebacker core. Cornerbacks, I think, are a little bit better. And then safeties, I think if Ashton Barker can be consistent, unlike an Earl Little from last year. I know Earl Little went to Ohio State. Maybe he does great things over there. But I think that if you're able to get a good Ashton Barker and you're able to get a motivated one that's healthy, man, I mean, I think that safety position could be really good with even a C.J. Richard, who I think is another guy, you know, and other guys like that who can really be good. KJ Kirkland's another one. There just seems to be a lot of good things happening with this team. Obviously, you're worried about the trenches. The trenches are probably going to be your biggest thing on offense and on defense because you're looking at it. The secondary can be as good as it wants to be. The linebackers can be great in run support. But if you're not having effective pass rush from your pass rushers, that's a problem. I mean, Florida State had 18 sacks last year as a defensive line in 12 games. That's not good. It's not good at all. It's terrible. And, I mean, at the end of the day, you want to see production. And if you're not getting that production from them and then your offensive line is getting bull rushed, let's just say, for example, I know my guy Plant the Spear, he was talking the other day about Braden Joyner, you know, being able to play the center position. There were times where he gave up a lot of sacks, a lot of pressures. You know, that's worrisome. And I get it. Mike Norvell's confident in his team. He wants to be confident. Why would he not be? I mean, this is a team – he was given another chance to be a coach at Florida State. You know, you thought after the Stanford loss, okay, maybe this isn't for him. But he's given another chance. I think this team is better. They're upgraded. You know, will that record indicate what's on the field? But I did have a question, you know, with that comment and how he goes. And do you think it's more smoke and mirrors? Do you think it's like positivity just coming out of Norvell? Like, is it just a perfect Monday afternoon for him, and it's just a stroll that, he just wants to keep telling the fan base everything's okay when really the sky's falling?
Not to me. I mean, this team is undoubtedly better than it was last year, and way levels better than that disastrous
Yeah.
2024 team. At least in my opinion.
Mm.
Um, I think Norvell really. I think despite what he has said to the media about him, uh, not really feeling the pressure on of his job security, I think he knows that, and I think he did a really good job in that via that transfer portal. Um, to acquire talent that's going to help him retain his job
Mm.
is the way I would word it, because I think that there is a lot of potential on this team. You really have to just see how far they go, because after UVA last year, it just seemed like the team quit. It looked out of sync. Um, you really gotta see how they respond to certain situations. I know he loves that word, respond.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
But I mean, you're going to have a tough challenge early. You're going to have an SMU on Labor Day. You're going to have an Alabama very early, and those are two games, um, that you may have to respond from. And that's where I really like that Central Arkansas game coming off that Alabama week. That's an easy, should be an easy win. Um, if not, I don't think we're at the
Yeah.
level of
Mhm.
where we need to be. But um, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think Norvell could be really excited in himself, and I understand. You got to be excited in your team. You can't be like, "Oh man, these dudes are trash." You can't be a Brian Kelly at the press conference and saying, "Oh, my team's awful." Execution or whatever he was saying. Trying to get his players executed or whatever he was doing. Weird guy, but anyway, he's not. We don't have to really worry about him at LSU, and we're not really having to worry too much about the whole Dabo Swinney press conference weird thing going on. We don't have that in Mike Norvell. You might see a lot of knows and ums, but I think that he is pretty confident in his ability for his teams. And you want to see that. You want to see more confidence in what you bring to the table. So I really like that.